how can you be skinny, and someone was like, oh, cocaine. And I'm like 14 years old, purely because I want to be skinny. I don't know what it does to you. I don't know what a stimulant is or the euphoria that it gives you. The lowest self-esteem you could possibly think of. I mean, it's just really sad. And then the shame and the guilt of selling my body. And I still didn't realize at this point that I was, trafficked. I still just thought like I had a pimp. I end up in the psych ward for 5 days. At this point, I'm covered in track marks. It was the first time in my life that I was like, I want to be sober. I don't want to live like this anymore. That was when I had my first big spiritual awakening. And I was like, damn, I'm back at the same treatment center that I was at over a decade ago. So I'm double in size. I have Hep C now. I have no veins left. If I don't stop, I'm either going to die or I'm going to end up like a toothless, homeless person.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Journey to Solutions podcast, where we interview people from all walks of life who've overcome the impossible. We shine light on one simple truth: no matter your past, no matter your pain, with the power of God, anything is possible. Today, we have a very special guest. We're going to be talking on these big topics that are very deep and very important. Not only are we going to talk about her overcoming her addiction, but also going through being human trafficked and what that's like and how do you navigate it when you're in it, when you're out of it, so you can heal from it. And another thing too, in the recovery world, you tend to run into people that tend to judge you if you're on medication, whether it's for your mental health and whether it's for your cravings. And sometimes when you judge people for that, you push people away, because I truly believe that harm reduction is a thing to help us navigate it. And now, don't get me wrong, some people will take advantage of it, but that's not what we're focusing on. We're going to focus on those who actually utilize it to get right and to get better. And so I want to introduce Christina Garofalo. Garofalo. I think I got it right.
That's close.
And by the way, guys, my voice is lost. Okay, that's why I sound like I'm from Romania. But yeah, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So like for you, I know we were talking earlier, and you were saying your thing was crystal meth and heroin.
Yes.
So like, how did that start? When did that start? Who introduced you to it? All that stuff.
So I grew up in San Diego. I actually had an amazing childhood. Both of my parents are still together. I have one older sister. My issues started at like 12, 13 years old with body image, body dysmorphia. I think growing up in the early 2000s.
How old are you?
I'm 37.
Okay.
I just always felt fat. Like I just was hyper focused on my weight, and I also was addicted to food. So like I tried to starve myself. That wasn't happening. And I definitely started partying at a young age. It started with alcohol and weed and, ecstasy, mushrooms, just experimenting. But then it was like...
Now let me ask you this. Why do you think you started to explore that? Because you didn't know what it was going to do for you until after you did it. So like, what was it in that moment when you remember the first time that you drank or whatever, took anything in?
I think I just had really low self-esteem. I was really uncomfortable in my own skin. I really didn't know what it was going to do for me.
Yeah.
Wanting to be cool. I was like in the emo scene and like going to shows, and that was just like the thing to do, was just like smoke and drink. And but I was just hyper focused on like being skinny. That was like my life goal as a teenager, was to be skinny.
Because I remember at that time, that's when you had Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera. I mean, that was the look.
Yeah.
Was to be skinny was the look back then. Yeah.
And there was no like body positivity.
Yeah.
There was not plus size models like there is today.
Right.
So I became desperate. I was like, so I started talking to my friends, like, how can you be skinny, and someone was like, oh, cocaine. And I'm like 14 years old and I'm seeking out cocaine purely because I want to be skinny.
Right,
I don't know what it does to you. I don't know what a stimulant is or the euphoria that it gives you. And I remember getting some and trying it and just needing more and more. Like, I want another line. All my friends were like happy and talking. And I was just like more. Didn't really like it that much. But the first like substance that I really had a problem with was Adderall. I had a friend at school that was like, oh, I get these meds and I don't like them. My parents make me take them. And, he just gave me a big old bag of them, and they were 30 milligram time release. So they were like the high ones. And I remember just popping 2, and I was up for days just like drawing and tweaking and plucking. And I would pick at my skin and like dig holes in my skin just on the Adderall. But I definitely started losing weight. I was doing my chores. I was like doing homework. I'm like, this is a magical substance, you know? But then the come down started. I needed more. I would do weed and alcohol with it, just like 15 years old, but the meth started around 16. I was at a house party. We were drinking and smoking weed, and there was this older guy there, probably in his like early 20s. And he's like, hey, you want to go to my car and smoke? And I thought he meant weed. So we go to his car, this little shitty red beater Honda Civic.
Checks out.
Of course. And he pulls out a meth pipe. And I had absolutely no idea what it was. Never even heard of meth. And I was like, what is it? And he's like, oh, it's like cocaine, but better. And I'm like, okay. And he like does it for me. And I took like 2 hits, and it was like the Adderall times a million. And I was just off and running. Like I would call him every day. I had a little part-time job, so I had a little bit of money, and I would just.
How were you navigating being around your family on crystal meth? You know, because you know that stuff. As for people that don't know,
right?
You can take 1 hit of meth, especially in the beginning, and be up for 2 days, like 3 days, like it's just that strong.
So I would try and like play it off, and you know, my parents are not addicts. I mean, I don't really think they knew the signs to like look for, but I would just like stay up all night in my room, like drawing these intricate drawings.
It's totally tweaked out.
Oh my God, it was crazy. But I was doing it for like maybe 6 months, and there was a lot of polysubstance use going on. Just anything at this point that I could get my hands on. Like the addiction is just full blown mode.
And you're in school at this time, huh?
I am in school, and I was an athlete. You know, I was on varsity volleyball, I was on JV softball, and I was trying to navigate that too. But eventually the coach like noticed, and that was one of the first like big consequences for my addiction, was getting cut from the volleyball team after being on varsity for 2 years. I went to tryouts like all high, and then he replaced me with a freshman. And I remember just feeling like devastated. This was my junior year, and I just partied my ass off. Like I just couldn't get enough of the substances. But it was one night, like I was on my way to work, and I had been up for days, and like I also had mental health. I didn't really know it at the time, but there was like a lot of depression, anxiety going on. And I had like a mental breakdown, and I called my mom, and I'm like, I've been doing this substance. I've been doing meth for 6 months, and I need help. And so they were supportive and scared and confused, and they're just like, all right. And they put me in some outpatient classes at Kaiser, and like were testing me at home, and I kept testing positive. So then it was like, it's time for treatment. So the first time I went to treatment was actually, I know it was called the Chapman Positive Action Center. So I know that it was somewhere up here. It was an adolescent unit. I was 16, and I, you know, left high school, and like, I remember they like gave me homework to take with me, and I took a break from school. And I was there for 30 days. I turned 17 years old when I was in there. And I remember like, the people in there were like, oh, you can snort ibuprofen and get high. And so we're like snorting ibuprofen. And
did it work?
No. Like, what the hell? I was very naive. But that was when I first started going to like meetings, you know, and getting.
And was any of that kind of like speaking to you at that time, or were you still just like your mind just wasn't there to really take in the AA talk, recovery talk?
I knew 100% that I was an addict. Like I was never in denial about it. The signs were very clear. But I just had the mindset of like, oh, well, I'll never overdose, or it won't get that bad, or, you know, it's not going to happen to me. But I knew that there was one time I was sitting in a meeting, and like there was a speaker talking, and I swear I saw like an aura behind him, and I'm like, I could feel God like letting me know, you know, this is a problem and you need to fix it. But I was 16, you know, or 17. So I stayed for 30 days, came back, you know, was sober for maybe a couple weeks, and then it started with the weed and then the alcohol, and then, you know, I started doing meth again. And at this point, it's become a tool for me to lose weight, you know, because as soon as you get off it, you put the weight back on. And so somehow I graduated high school, somehow. I actually, the last year of high school, I did like the school for troubled kids. It's, I forget, Abraxas or something that it's called in Poway.
Yeah, we had one I went to, it was called Access.
Yeah.
And it was like a court-run school, like, in trouble so many times, kicked out of school. Yeah.
It was cool though, because like it was super easy.
Yeah.
And they also let me walk with my class.
That's
like I
cool.
still was able to graduate from Westview High School in 2007. You know, with my mom's help, she helped me apply to colleges, and I got into Cal State Long Beach. You know, I'm smart. I will say that. I've always been smart. I've always been athletic. So I had that going for me. So off I go to Long Beach State, moving to the dorms. And I remember my roommate was like this girl from Virginia, and she was a total square. She had never smoked a cigarette, never had a drink in her life. And then she gets put with me, and I'm...
I smoke meth.
Oh my God. And honestly, I really was trying to stop the meth. Like, I knew that was the problem. So I was just smoking a shit ton of weed and drinking. And I ended up gaining 80 pounds. They say like the freshman 15. I gained the freshman 80. I was also working at Claim Jumper, that steakhouse. And, you know, the food there is so good. And so I just... And so that just triggered me beyond belief too. You know, looking back, it's like the depression, the anxiety, the eating disorder, body dysmorphia. You know, I was also making myself throw up. I was bulimic, severely bulimic. We like all shared a bathroom at the dorm, and I knew all the girls knew that I was in there throwing up. But I just couldn't stay clean, didn't really want to stay clean, didn't really have a desire to figure out a way to stay clean. This was in like 2007, 2008. I stayed at Long Beach for like a year and a half. And it was there that I did heroin for the first time. Well, first I started experimenting with pills. Like I was taking Percocets and Oxys. And
was it the same thing? Someone just had them? Like, all right, we'll try it? Yeah.
Yeah, like my friend would get the yellow Norcos. And
yeah.
I would get them and literally just take 8, like right away. And I would just spend the whole night like itching.
Yeah.
And I just loved it so much. And then this was when the Oxy 80s were big.
Blues,
and you know,
OCs.
you could like suck the coating off and shoot them
freeze
and smoke
it.
them. And do all kind. There was no filler or anything in them, so I would just smoke Oxys and just be nodded out on the toilet like, this is amazing, I love this. And then I met this guy that was like, he was a doctor hopper in Long Beach, so he would just go see all these different doctors and get all these different pills, and he just had me on all kinds of shit. And he would go in the bathroom for a long time, and I would be like, I'm like 19 years old. I'm like, what is he doing in there? Like, I didn't know about IV drug use at this point. Like, and then, you know, I went in there one day and he was slumped over the toilet with like a needle. And I'm like, and at first I was like, oh my God, no, like you can't be doing that. Like, but then curiosity got the best of me, and I'm like, all right, I want to try this. And I remember asking him like more than once, you know, can I try? And he was like, no, like I'm not going to give you, I'll give you Oxys and Percocet all day long, but I'm not going to give you heroin. And I just kept pushing him, and he was staying with me at this little apartment I was at. And finally I was like, I remember vividly telling him, if you don't shoot me up with heroin, you have to leave. And so he made me like the tiniest little shot, gave it to me, and I was just off and running. That was when I started shooting meth and heroin. I wasn't doing them together in the same shot, but I was like doing them, you know, and I would stay up for days, and I wasn't going to college. I was just dropped out at this point.
How were you paying your bills?
My parents. My parents would help me. So yeah, it was crazy talking about this. So my parents, you know, I called them again. I have a tendency when I'm in a crisis to call my parents, you know, and I'm like, I'm strung out, need help. Now I'm doing heroin. Now I'm using needles. And I just feel so bad. They're like, did not know how to help me, you know? So they brought me home, and and then that was when I experienced like being dope sick.
Oh, so that's, oof.
I didn't really ever go through it before because I always had like a way to get some, and maybe I just wasn't doing enough to like get sick. But I remember like I went home and I had been up for days, so I slept for a couple days, and then I woke up in the middle of the night thrashing and sweating, and I didn't really know like what was wrong with me. I was just like, oh my God. And I'm going to their liquor cabinet, drinking their liquor, just anything to like escape the feeling of withdrawal. And so it was 2009. I go back into treatment at Serenity House. It's a 90-bed program in San Diego. I actually graduated And then I went back, I relapsed and then went back again and then left after a few weeks. And then they found this rehab in Riverside that I went to called Whiteside Manor. Went there again. I graduated, moved into their sober living. And then a couple weeks later, I relapsed. I went back and then left after a couple weeks. So I call it like the year of the rehabs because that was a whole like year period.
And what do you think it was for you when you look back that was like why you kept on relapsing? What would happen? Was it boredom? Was it the the insecurities arising again, the anxiety? Like what would pop up?
I think just the boredom, anxiety, and just untreated mental health. Like, I didn't have PTSD at this point, but I think there was just severe depression. I didn't like myself. I was overweight, self-conscious, and the only way I knew how to like drop the weight fast was to do meth. And I would always start with meth and then go to heroin because I don't really do well with being all amped up for like a long time. Like I would eventually have to like do some heroin to like mellow me out. So it was 2010, and this is when they are like, you know, we found this rehab in Hawaii. It's called Habilitat, and it's 2.5 to 3 year long inpatient program.
Oh, wow.
And they showed me pictures, and it's like in Kaneohe, like right on the water. And I'm like, okay, you know, I'm at this point, I'm like willing to try anything. You know, did I really want to be sober? No, but I didn't know how to be homeless. You know, at this point, I had never like lived on the streets or had to like fend for myself or anything. And that was my options. My parents like, you can move out and be homeless, or you can go to this rehab. So I get on a plane, they ship me off there, and I remember my dad like gave me one of his Xanax because I'm like freaking out. And they have like prescription pills at home for their actual like medical problems that they never take. My parents are just not addicts like at all. They don't have addictive tendencies. But the treatment center picked me up from the airport, and we're riding back in the van and going through all these windy roads. And I'm like, wow, this is like really pretty, you know? And we get to the facility, and then it's just on. It's all right. Give us all your stuff, undress, strip search. Like they literally make you get butt naked, and it's like behavior modification. Again, had no idea what that was. Now I do because I work in treatment and I know the different types of treatment, but it was, you know, 120 people. I would say like 70% locals and then like 30%, you know, mainlanders or whatever you want to call them. Is don't look at the men, don't talk to the men, wake up at 6, bed made with the corners tucked. Double scrub every day for like 3 hours. Like if you got in trouble, they would put you on something called a dishpan where you'd stand in the middle of the like courtyard and with a table, and they'd give you like a lawn chair and a toothbrush and a little thing of like soap, and you'd have to stand there all day. You couldn't smile, couldn't look at people. You know, they would like bring you your meals, and like just the weirdest like types of punishment, make you wear signs. Like they also were not trauma informed at all. Like I know what trauma informed treatment is because that's the type of treatment center I work at now. And it was like, you fucking piece of shit. Your parents fucking hate you. They sent you out here. Nobody loves you. You fucking whore, slut. Like just say,
Jesus.
This is like staff saying this to you, you know? And they do these things called games where you all like sit in a circle and or one of you like sits in the middle, and then everybody just like verbally attacks you. And I guess I can understand how it might help people. Like this treatment center is like the last stop on the block before felons have to like go do their time. They'll send you to like the 30-day program first, then maybe the 60-day one, then the 90-day one. And then if you keep fucking up, it's like, all right, it's either Habilitat or you're going to do your term. So it was like really tough. And I'm just like this, not innocent, but for the most part at this time, still pretty innocent and naive, like white girl, just... I remember just like, this is traumatizing, you know what I mean? And so I ended up just leaving.
How long were you there for?
I was there for like, in total 3 months, but I left after like maybe 2 months. And I left with the clothes on my back. I didn't have a phone. I didn't have money. I just went walking up the path, and it was kind of like down in a windy road down by the water. And I had to walk like a mile or two to get to the main road. And I remember looking left, looking right, like, I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? You know? And so I see like a little store up there. So I just go up there and I wait until I see the first homeless person that I can. And I asked them if they had drugs. They did. I did drugs with them. And I went on like a whole weekend bender. And I remember ending up in like downtown, you know, Honolulu, and some high rise. And there was a bunch of tweakers like taking apart computers and laptops. And I was in like a blackout. I think I was taking maybe Xanax because So Sunday, I think I left on a Friday, and then like Sunday rolls around, and I'm trying to call my parents, like, you need to fly me home. I can't do this. And they're like, we're not flying you home. You know, they told me before I left that if you leave, we're not flying you home. So don't leave. And so I called Habilitat, and I'm like, can you take me back? And they're like, yeah. And when I went back, it was hell. It was hell. They made me sit in the corner for 10 days, where you wake up at 6 in the morning, you go and sit in a corner and you face the wall all day. Can't look to the right, can't look to the left, can't talk to anybody, and you stay there till midnight. 18 hours a day, and they bring you your meals. They do take you for like a smoke break or two, but and you never know like when you're going to get off your punishment. It was all up to like the director. He would come and, you know, see who was on a punishment, and should we take him off? No, let's leave him on. Go back in the fucking corner. And like 10 days of sitting in that corner, and I couldn't do it. I was going crazy, you know, so I got up and left again. And same thing, walked up to the liquor store, found someone to hang out with, like a homeless person. And you know, I remember sleeping outside for a couple nights, and I was asking around, like, where can I go? And they recommended like a homeless shelter on the other side of the island. So I got some bus money, took the bus over to the other side of the island, stayed in a homeless shelter for a few nights. And you had to leave during the day. So I would just leave and wander around. And I would go steal bottles of alcohol. Like, my main purpose was just to like get fucked up on whatever I could, you know? But someone ended up recommending this program called Ho'omaukiola in Waianae. And Waianae is on the west side of the island, and it's like there's not a lot of white people. It's mostly locals. And they were like, yeah, there's a 90-day program on over there, and you know, they prioritize pregnant women and IV drug users. And so I remember just taking the bus over there and showing up at the door, and I'm like, I'm an IV drug user and I need treatment. So they put me in their program, and it was pretty small. It was like 8 men and 8 women, but it was a lot more like chill. It was 12-step based. They would take you to meetings. And so I wasn't like on any MAT treatment at this time. I was just sober. I also wasn't on any mental health meds, and I did okay. You know, I was all right, but I just was bored and wanted to party, and I don't know. So I moved into like their sober living, and I was there for a few months, and I got a job working at Chili's, and I would take the bus to like Chili's every day and work. And my paychecks were literally like, I was making like $8 an hour. So my checks were like $250. But, you know, my dad, you know, helped me get a car, like this shitty little $2,000 car. And I started driving that to and from work, and I was staying sober, but I was just eating like crazy. You know, I just was trading one, and I got big. I was like maybe 230 at this point, and just very unhappy in my own skin. And I went to Burger King one day, and I was sitting there eating, and I saw this guy that was a client at the rehab, and he looked high, and he's like, I got a big bag of meth on me. And I was like, oh shit. So he gave me some, and I went and did a fat line in the bathroom, and I was just off and running. Tried to go back to the sober living for a little while, but you know, that didn't really last. So then I moved into my car, and that was when I first experienced like living in my car. Ended up quitting my job, or I don't know if I quit or got fired from Chili's. I really don't remember. But that was when, you know, I really experienced what being homeless was like. And I didn't have a hustle at this point. Like, I didn't know how to like fend for myself. My way of like getting high was going and asking people like, hey, can I bum some? Or like, I'll drive you somewhere. You can use my phone, or I'll give you some cigarettes or whatever. Like, my parents weren't giving me money at this point. But, you know, my thing was like, I really wanted opiates, and there's not really any opiates in Waianae. It's like all meth. And so I was just doing ungodly amounts of meth, shooting it. I got down to like 140 pounds, which for my stature is pretty skinny. I looked all sucked up. I had sores all over my face. Like, I was just a total tweaker. But like, I kept asking, like, where can I get heroin? And I would like ask my friends to raid their parents' medicine cabinets, and I would try and take Vicodin and like break it down in a spoon and cook it and suck it up in a needle and shoot it. Like, and everyone kept saying, you need to go to downtown Honolulu. Like, you need to make your way down south if you want to find that stuff. And so one day I just packed up my car, and I was like, all right, I'm going. I had no money, and I just drove down there, and I asked a few people, like, you know, bartering with them, like, I'll drive you if you can get me some. And so I survived like that for a while. I would hold a sign, you know, I would survive on like maybe $20 worth of drugs a day, which was like nothing. But it was at this point that I met the man that started grooming me. So he literally he just did 2 years in the Halava prison. And I remember like I was in a parking lot, like tweaking my ass off, trying to clean my car out. I had all my car doors open, like, and he walked up with this other guy that I did know, this guy named Dave, and then I saw the other guy, and he just immediately, I didn't realize it then, but I realize it now. He immediately was like, ooh, a target. You know, insecure, homeless white girl with a car, with a phone. My parents always made sure I had a phone. That was one thing I always did have. Um, and it started as like, you know, being interested in me, love bombing me, making me feel like just he was in love with me, and I'll make you feel safe. And, you know, he probably spent like 3 weeks to a month just grooming me, earning my trust. And, you know, he didn't have anywhere to live either. So we were just living in my car. But then it was like, you know, you can sell your body to make money. And I come from like a really good family. My parents are both very successful. I have an older sister, very successful. I, in the beginning, was like, oh, hell no, I'm not doing that. Like, I have morals and values, and that will never be me. But he just kept pressuring me and manipulating me, gaslighting me, abusing me. He knew that I did love him. I was in love with him, and he knew that. And he would leave for days and you know, tell me, if you want to see me, I need you to sell your body. And I remember, you know, I was hungry, I'm dope sick, I want cigarettes, I want gas money. Like, all right, fine, like I'll do it. And so it started off with like walking the strip in Waikiki. They like introduced me to this older girl that was like a working girl, and she like helped me get ready one night, and she like put me in a dress and heels, and they gave me a lot of drugs. I was like, I'm only doing this if you get me high as fuck. And so, you know, they did. It was him and his friend. And I remember just going out on this strip, like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm like wobbling around in these heels, like, you want to hang out? No, okay. Like, so awkward.
Yeah.
Didn't really make any money like that. And then I tried that for a couple nights, and I would end up like going off with guys just to like get high with them. And then, you know, I don't really want to say his name on here, but he would call me and be like, where the fuck are you? And I'm like, oh, I'm smoking weed on the beach with this guy. And he's like, you're supposed to be having sex with him for money. And I'm like, I didn't want to, you know, I did it a couple times, and it was awful. It was god awful. But I was just so deep in my addiction and, you know, being abused, and he just had me like under his hook. And then it was, you know, putting me in the massage parlors, and I would go at like 11 o'clock at night and work until 3 in the morning. And it was at this point that I learned how to do it and get it over with and kind of check out mentally.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that, what did you have to do when it's like you said, right, this is not who I am.
Yeah.
But then you find yourself doing that, especially in the beginning. Like, what did you have to do? Do you have to like dissociate? Do you have to like, what do you do to kind of just get through it?
I just thought about the drugs at the end. I was obsessed with shooting up drugs, and like I knew that the faster I could get it over with, the faster I could take that money and go use. And, you know, he did take most of the money, but he did buy me drugs, and that's really all I cared about. But yeah, disassociating. But every single date, you know, was traumatizing. I would almost like black out, just completely like out of body experience, because I knew some girls that did it and they liked it. Like they could have sex with these strange men that they weren't attracted to, and they loved making the money. And
yeah,
and I just was never like that. It was never like that for me.
Yeah, I knew somebody because I've been in that world in a sense of like there's people that are into stuff like that, and it was like I was like, how do you? And they're sober doing it. Right, like hooking out people, and I was like, how do you do that? They go, well, if a creepy guy's gonna stare at me, he might as well pay me for it.
Yeah,
kind of like that mindset. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, and no judgment to them, right? But I didn't realize how traumatized I was getting. Every single time I would do that, I was getting traumatized, and then I started getting assaulted. I had a few dates where they would beat the shit out of me. You know,
The customer would?
The customer robbed me. I had, you know, one guy that I met, and then his friend showed up, and they just beat me up and took my money and my phone, and they were trying to steal my car, but somehow I managed to stop that from happening. You know, and, you know, I was raped. And I never really did anything about it, because it's like, well, I was there willingly to sell my body, but then it wasn't going the direction that this guy wanted. So then he turned physical and put me in like a chokehold and took the condom off and raped me. Like, and I was screaming for him to stop and begging, and I was bleeding, and it was just really traumatic, you know? So I was working for the guy for maybe a year, but he was on like drug court and kept going back in and out of jail, kept relapsing, and like he never really loved me. You know, I thought he did, but he eventually ended up going back into prison or jail or whatever, and I was kind of just left on my own. And it was at that point that I knew what to do. Oh, and they also put me on Backpage, like the escort website. Yeah. And so, you know, I continued to do it on my own. I did sex work for 6 years, 7 years maybe. But the first year of it, you know, I was sex trafficked, and I don't believe I ever would have gotten into that life if it wasn't for that man. And there was a lot of physical abuse. You know, he would choke me out and hit me in the face. And but yeah, so. And then the guilt and shame was just like just overwhelming, ungodly. And there was this one lady that I was like renting a room from, and I think she started to pick up on what I was doing, because I was always bringing guys over and, oh, this is my friend, this is my friend, this is my friend. And she had my parents' contact information, and she ends up printing out my ads, finds my ads online somehow, prints them out and sends them to my parents. And so my parents call me one day, and my dad, I could hear in his voice, he was like on the verge of tears. He's like, Christina, what the hell is this? And I didn't even know what to say. I remember hanging up on him, and he called back, and I hung up again, and he called back, and he's like, what is this? And I'm like, I tried to play it off like, oh, it's not real, it's fake. And, you know, I can't imagine what they were thinking. But I met a man at this point, Fred. He was the first man, you know, that I really met in Hawaii that didn't ask me for like, he just had an apartment, and he did sell drugs, and he offered to help me. You know, you could stay with me, and he never asked me for sex. He never made me feel like I had to do that. Like, I think he genuinely felt bad for me. He was like this local uncle that everybody knew, but he saw like what I was going through, and I think he just wanted to help me. And he ended up being a very crucial figure in my life. He lost, you know, his girlfriend and then his baby's mom. They both died from their addiction, and he had kind of a wake-up call. He's like, I'm not selling drugs anymore. I'm done. I'm going to find God. And we're staying in the apartment together. But yeah, at this point, I have no veins. I'm shooting in my neck, my femoral artery. Like I don't know if you can see, but I have scars like all over my arm, and it's all indented because I would just muscle it. I had no veins. That's what like getting high was. I would pick up the dope and then go spend hours searching for a vein, just blood everywhere, needles everywhere. It was a really miserable time in my life.
And how old are you at that point now?
Maybe like, this was like 27. Okay. I moved there when I was 20.
So when you're 20, and then how old are you when you met that guy that groomed you?
About 22.
So 22, and then from 22 to about 27.
Yeah, just lots of infections. I ended up, you know, in the hospital with abscesses. Like, I was the kind of addict that had like bandages all over me, you know. And I was like still doing dates with guys, and they would be like, oh, what happened? Because I have a big bandage. And I'm, oh, it's a tattoo. That's what I would tell them. But really, it's like a gnarly infection underneath. My teeth were starting to get fucked up at this point. You know, they were kind of rotting in the front, like turning gray. And I'm very overweight, and I'm just covered in like pokes and bruises and scars. And I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. What do
you think it was that, you don't want this life? Well, why do you think you kept on repeating it when you look back, now that you can process it?
Definitely at this point, the physical dependence, like being dope sick. And also just at this point, I felt like I was worthless, and what's the word I'm looking for? Just kind of like a used up toy. I felt like I had been ran through by men, and no one would ever love me. I'll never be a mom. I'll never be a wife. Like, I'm just a whore that deserves nothing but shit. You know, and there were a couple of times I did try and kill myself by injection. I remember one time I put 2 grams in the spoon of heroin, and the whole needle was full all the way to the end, and it was so dark, and I just fell asleep and woke up. Like, that's one thing I've never experienced is overdose. I have had a couple seizures because I would shoot up in my neck, and I would not just like the ones on the side because those went quickly, but I would go in this one really deep inside my neck. I would use a long needle and go real deep. And a couple times I like hit an artery and I had a seizure.
Oh, shit.
But yeah, so the last couple years of Hawaii were miserable. You know, I would just sleep all day and sometimes tweak out, but I was mostly just, I started selling too at this point. I was selling heroin. Not like anything big time. I would pick up like a half an ounce a day and just, that's how I stayed well.
And at this point, you never got arrested during that time?
I did get arrested, but not mostly for shoplifting.
Okay.
You know, I was arrested a couple times for prostitution. Like, I got set up by cops. There was also a really fucked up experience that happened while I was being trafficked by the man. Because it was him and his friend that were like doing all the coordinating of it all. And there was this girl that they brought into the mix. And, you know, I'm only 22, 23. So I'm still pretty young. She did appear young to me, and I got a bad vibe from her. I remember asking her more than once, like, how old are you? You know, and she said 18. And I just took it for what it was. Like, I didn't know anything about like underage trafficking or anything like that at this point, but she started selling herself for them too. And then they would have us doing dates together. And then she ends up getting popped in a sting and rats on all of us. And shows our ads, and turns out she's only 17. And so we were all like under investigation, and I had to go and like talk in front of like people, and then they realized that like I was a victim too. You know, I shared that like they were taking my money, and so I didn't get charged with anything, but the other guy ended up getting 10 years for it. So that was really scary, you know, and I feel really bad about that. And I think her dad was like some big military guy, and he was just going after us. Like, he wanted, you know, full justice for what happened to his daughter and everything like that. So, but the turning point was in 2020.
This is the COVID year.
It
right?
was,
COVID
yeah.
year.
Yeah, we were all kind of like on lockdown, and it was just like...
How was that, you're being on lockdown for you out there?
Well, my dealer lived like 3 blocks away, so I could just walk to him, and I would just go and pick up drugs, and then I would literally just sleep all day, not out all day, and eat all day. The highest weight I got was 250, and I'm like about 180 now, so about 70 pounds heavier, and I was just, oh my God, if you could just, the lowest self-esteem you could possibly think of. I mean, it's just really sad. And then the shame and the guilt of selling my body. And I still didn't realize at this point that I was, you know, trafficked. I still just thought like I had a pimp or whatever. But so I wasn't getting a period. Sometimes opiates can like take away your period for a woman. And also I was really fat. So I had a big infection on my arm, and I went to the hospital, and the doctor comes in. He's like, well, I just wanted to say congratulations. And I'm like, for what? My abscess? He's like, well, no, you're pregnant. And I was like, oh my God. And at this point, there was only one man that I was sleeping with. Like, it wasn't a romantic thing, but it was like a customer that I had seen for a long time. He was like a full-blooded Hawaiian man, like local brada, as you call him.
Yeah.
But by the time I like got to Planned Parenthood and had them do an ultrasound and everything, like I was already 15 weeks along, which is like almost 4 months. But I couldn't have this child. I mean, didn't want to have the child. And I had such a bad infection. I remember I had such a bad infection on my calf that my whole calf was like red and swollen. And I just remember, like, I can't have this child, you know, and I manipulated the guy. I was like, oh, yeah, it's going to cost $4,000 for an abortion. And so he gave me the money. It was free. I had I had insurance or whatever to cover it, but took that money, obviously, and got high with it. But I did end up having an abortion. they told me, oh, it's just going to feel like period cramps. And I had never had an abortion before, never been pregnant before. And it was, I have a lot of tattoos. I have a lot of, abscesses getting cut open, lots of painful experiences in my life. And this was by far the most painful thing I've ever experienced. I don't mean to get graphic, but I could literally feel the suction, and I was screaming. I had like a nurse that was holding my hand, and they didn't give me anything because I was very clearly an addict. They're not going to give me like Xanax or pain meds. And I tried to finish the procedure, but I couldn't. I was bawling, screaming my eyes out, like calling my mom on the phone. And I was like, I can't finish this. And so we stopped halfway through, and I had to like put a diaper on and go home, and like was bleeding all night. And then I went back the next day and they put me under like anesthesia. And so that was in 2020, and that was extremely traumatic. I remember just like going home and just laying, like staring at the ceiling. Like I just couldn't believe what I just went through. And, it didn't really like hit me until later that, the father was a Hawaiian man, and our baby would have been like half white, half Hawaiian, like probably really cute. But I wasn't in love with that man. And he was like older, I didn't want to. So anyways, I've forgiven myself for that at this point. But 2020, I'm like, my parents just want me to come home at this point. I would say after the trafficking, maybe like after about 5 years in Hawaii, my parents actually did want me to come home. They knew how bad it was for me, and they wanted to bring me home. But I was like, no, because I knew if I went home, I wouldn't be able to continue like what I was doing. So I make it home in 2020 eventually, and I get on methadone. And I'm on methadone for like 6 months. I'm living with my parents. This was COVID, so I'm doing outpatient classes on Zoom. And I was all right. Like I was doing okay. I was like getting some mental health care, but I wasn't on the right medications, and I was still really overweight, and I just was rarely unhappy. I didn't do any type of like trauma therapy or anything for like what I had been through. And then I got into this relationship with this loser that was living with his mom and on probation for hitting his wife and like, or his ex-wife. And I just had no standards, and then he ended up cheating on me. Big surprise. And so I decide one night I'm going to drink. I go to my parents' liquor cabinet and I take like 4 shots of Bacardi. And it literally, as soon as the alcohol started flowing through my system, I picked up my phone, and I didn't know where to get any drugs like in San Diego, but I made some calls and I made it happen. And I did have like a little part-time job. And I remember I went and got like $200 worth of meth, and I couldn't find heroin. Nobody had heroin anymore, and it's only fentanyl. So I went and got some fentanyl. And so I remember shooting up fentanyl like after being sober for 6 months, but I was on methadone.
Yeah.
And didn't overdose. But I had like a horrible month-long relapse. Got kicked out. I was staying in hotels. Just, I don't even really remember, but I ended up in the psych ward. That's another part of my story, is I've been in the psych ward a lot.
Did you get 5150 or 52?
Yeah, I have a tendency to, threaten suicide and threaten to hurt myself, like when I'm been up for days and strung out and on all kinds of substances. So I end up in the psych ward for 5 days. And then I went to a crisis house for 3 weeks in Escondido. And then I decided on my own that I was going to go back to residential treatment. At this point, I'm covered in track marks. My teeth are just fucked. I'm fat as fuck. It was the first time in my life that I was like, I want to be sober. I don't want to live like this anymore. And so I put myself back at Serenity House. This is the program that I went to before I went to Hawaii. And that was when I had my first big spiritual awakening. I remember vividly. It's a 2-story facility. I was standing on the 2nd floor, just kind of looking over the parking lot. And I was like, damn, I'm back at the same treatment center that I was at over a decade ago. I went halfway around the Pacific Ocean and back, and I'm back here at the same treatment center, except I'm double in size. I have Hep C now. My teeth are fucked. I'm covered in tracks. I have no veins left. And I just was like, if I don't stop, I'm either going to die or I'm going to end up like a toothless, homeless person hunched over on the side of the road. I knew that was going to happen to me if I didn't get it. I'm 32 at this point. And so I just committed. Like, when they say like you're done, I was finally at that point where I was like, I'm done, and so I started going to meetings, and I was on methadone, and I finally got on like a good combination of mental health meds. I had tried everything under the sun: Zoloft, Prozac, Lexapro, Effexor, but what finally worked for me was Wellbutrin. I was on Wellbutrin and Boost Bar, and so I started treating. I was diagnosed with complex PTSD. I had severe night terrors. I would wake up screaming like every night. Just of all the men that like attacked me and stuff. And I used a couple times while I was at Serenity House. Like, people brought drugs in and I couldn't say no, and so I did. But then I would go and tell them myself, and it was a harm reduction program. So it's like, we'll give you another chance. We'll extend your stay for 30 days.
Right.
So I stayed there for 120 days. I completed in September of 2021. My clean date is August 19th of 2021. The last time I used any substances was at Serenity House. I remember I got some meth and fentanyl, and I was like trying to shoot it up, and I couldn't find a vein. And I was like, God, this fucking sucks now. It's not fun anymore. I mean, it's one thing when you got a big juicy vein, you could just boom, done. But I still don't have any. Like,
and every time people look at me, they're like, you got nice veins.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can't see a single vein left. Even now when I have to get blood drawn, like there's nothing. It's, so, what my life looks like today is beyond my wildest dreams. I mean, when I got out of treatment, I went into sober living. I got a job working at Target, making $15 an hour. And I just worked full time, lived in sober living, went to meetings. And
did you get a sponsor right away? Did that take time?
So this is also when I experienced the judgment in the rooms, because I was on methadone, but I was also, trying to work steps and take tokens. And I remember I took a 30-day token at a meeting, and like this girl came up to me afterwards, and she's like, didn't you say that you were on methadone like once? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, well, you're not supposed to be taking tokens. And I remember I wanted to hit her in the face. I was like, this stupid bitch. Like, I called my sponsor at the time, and I felt so like offended. And I'm just like, I'm here trying my best. Like, I was shooting meth and fentanyl and heroin in my neck, and I'm on this medication that, yes, I guess it is an opiate, but I wasn't abusing it. In fact, I was already tapering. I was on a pretty high dose in the very beginning. But I started tapering. I was on 170, which is pretty high. In the very beginning, but I knew that I didn't want to be like that high. And so, it took me 2.5 years to taper all the way down to 14 milligrams. And I knew that I wanted to get the Sublocade injection, which is like the shot form of Suboxone, because it comes out of your system so slowly that there's no withdrawal.
Withdrawals, yep.
So once I got down to 14 milligrams, I was doing like 1 milligram. At first I would do like 5 milligrams a week, because when you're up that high, you don't really like notice. But once I got to like 80, I slowed down a little, did 2 milligrams a week. Once I got to like 50, I would do like 1 to 2 milligram jumps. And yeah, I was just bound and determined. And I was really involved in 12-step, really involved in like recovery events and with Dope Sick and Stay Stopped and all the brands. And I would just, my sponsor, at first, I did go through a few sponsors, but I eventually found one, and she's never even done heroin. She's a meth addict. But she is the one that taught me that recovery is a very unique journey, right? And comparison is going to be the thief of your joy. If you're going to sit there and be like, oh, well, my recovery doesn't look like that person's, and it's not good enough. And so she taught me to not care about anybody's opinion. It's really, I care about her opinion, and I care about God's opinion. Of course, my boyfriend and my family, I care about their opinions too. But ultimately, when it comes to my recovery, like, it's about me, God, and my sponsor. And so I did find some meetings were more judgmental than others. So I would just stick to the ones that weren't. And I wanted a place where I could feel comfortable talking about my taper. Like, I went down 2 milligrams this week, and I'm feeling it, but I found my women's home group, and they were just absolutely amazing. They never judged me. They let me have commitments. I was a secretary. I would lead the meeting all the time, and they all knew that I was on MAP medication. And I'm so glad that I found that meeting. It's still my home group to this day. I go every Monday. So I was working at Target, and then I got my first job in treatment in a detox in Fallbrook, and I was working the overnight shift, and I started going to school for substance use counseling. And the first treatment center I worked at was like a private pay, so it was like the difference between private pay and state funded. And it just like wasn't really for me. And also the overnight shift was like kicking my ass. I couldn't do it. So I start looking for other jobs, and I apply at Serenity House. Might as well. I went there, 3 times in total. And I applied for the peer support position, and they ended up offering me the counseling position, the SUD counselor. So that was my first job working as a counselor. I got hired in 2023. I worked there for almost 2 years. Got great experience, but it's a huge program, like 90 women, sometimes even like 100.
A lot.
Our caseloads were like 25, 5 90-minute groups a week. Like just the workload was crazy.
Yeah.
And I made a couple mistakes while I was working there, boundary issues with clients. I had given a client my phone number to be supportive, and then they told on me, and it was this big thing, and I got in trouble.
I've had times where like I would, again, innocently bring a client a Bang energy drink, the Bangs, and for counseling. And then sure enough, everyone's, why didn't you get me one? All your clients. And they're like, you like him more than me? And it's like, oh my gosh. But I get it.
It was a hard lesson learned because, and this is pretty vulnerable of me to say on the podcast, but it was either be fired or resign. That's how big of a deal it was to my supervisors that I had given this client my phone number and was texting with them. And I was just trying to be supportive. But what happened was the client then started catching feelings for me, romantic feelings for me. It was like a lesbian or something. I don't know. And that wasn't ever my intention when I gave them my number. But it was a hard lesson learned. I learned my lesson. I think all counselors and people that have worked in the field have maybe made a mistake like that.
Yeah, I've actually been let go from a job for something like that innocently, where it was I have big events all the time, and it's different in the addiction world in the medical world for addiction than it is for like cancer or any other disease.
Right.
Addiction is kind of weird because it's like I see them at meetings, we go to events, I see clients there. It's just different.
Yeah.
So the church that I have, one of the clients, I have events there, so all the clients go, different treatment centers go there, and they let them, and so. The mom was like, I really like what you do for my daughter. Thank you so much. I was like, oh yeah, come by anytime. We can all hang out, like really cool. We'll help you guys out, get you guys in ministry. So I hang out with the girl, we're eating, talking about how to make that work innocently. And then I get a call from the owner. He's like, are you really hanging out with clients?
Yeah.
Of course his mindset, again, they probably think I'm trying to do something. But I remember I was like, no, like that wasn't what I was doing. He's like, well, I don't believe you. I'm like, and he's like, I'm going to have to let you go.
Oh God.
And he's like, you better learn your lesson. That you don't do this again with somebody else. And again, it was a hard pill to swallow because I didn't mean that. But then I realized, I got to be careful. Like, even though I have good intentions, this is work.
Right.
And I got to separate that.
Yeah. I learned my lesson, definitely. So Serenity House is a Medi-Cal program, state funded. Most of the women there were probation or CPS ordered. And so I really got some great experience,
That's good stuff,
working with probation officers, and I did a lot of case management there. So I am grateful for my position there. They're called a perinatal program. So they took women that were pregnant and also women with children. So we had 90 women, and then a bunch of them had their kids too. So, but I love it. I really love it. There's only 2 perinatal programs in North County, San Diego, and now I work at the other one, Family Recovery Center, FRC, and it's a much better fit for me. My caseload, I only have 9 on my caseload.
Nice.
I only do 1 group a week.
Nice.
The workload is like a lot better. So I did just finish school, my drug and alcohol counseling schooling, and I took the test, and so I'm now a certified SUD counselor, so that's really exciting.
So is that for the CAD-C, or is there a different name for it?
I'm a SUDCC, but it's the same thing as a KDAC.
Yeah.
It's just a different certifying agency. So that just passed like 2 weeks ago. So my credential just changed, and I've been signing the new one, and cool. it's honestly been surreal. But I'm really involved in the recovery community online. I have a TikTok with like 23,000 followers, and I've had it for like 4 years now. And most of my followers came from me sharing about my mat taper. Like, people were so invested in my journey and they wanted to know how I did that successfully, because it is very rare for people to taper off of mat medication and stay sober. But I found the cheat code to do it, where I really almost experienced no withdrawals at all. There were a couple nights I had some disrupted sleep, maybe some, but I never like the freezing cold, toss and turn and can't sleep. Like,
shitting yourself, throwing up.
Yeah, I never experienced that. So to be able, it did take me a long time, but to be able to come off 170 milligrams of methadone and taper all the way off, I have almost 2 years off now.
Dude, that's awesome.
You know, my last dose of methadone was I have actually 2 years off methadone, because it was in February of 2024. And then I got 4 Sublocade shots. I got 2 300 milligrams and 1 100 milligrams, and I was done. I remember getting my completion certificate from the MAT clinic. And, you know, but I love that about my story, because I am, you know, fully abstinent now. And some people might say that my recovery started once I got off the MAT medication, and that's fine. To me, I have 4.5 years clean. No drugs, no alcohol, no pills, like, except my mental health meds and my MAT medication. And it saved my life. You know, I was an opiate addict for so long. I tried so many different ways to get off of opiates with no success, you know, and so methadone is what helped me get sober, and I'll forever be grateful for it. It is a wonderful tool if it's used, you know, appropriately. Under doctor supervision, if you're not abusing it. It really is a great tool. And, you know, some people feel like they need to be on it for life, and that's okay too. That just wasn't my journey. I knew that eventually I wanted to be off of everything. You know, I'm in a really healthy relationship with my boyfriend, Ryan. We've been trying to have a kid. He doesn't have any children. I don't have any kids. He's almost 40. You know, I just turned 37. So we are like a little older, but we're finally at a point now where like we really want to bring a child into this world. And we've been trying for a year. So I have been diagnosed with infertility, and we are trying. I have a bunch of tests ordered and ultrasounds and stuff to see what exactly the problem is. But I would say, like, the things that I finally did different in this time around was, like, for one, treating my mental health, and 2, finding God.
Yeah. How yeah. Let's talk about the God thing. Like, how has God been pivotal for you in your recovery?
In so many ways. I mean, I just like got goosebumps thinking about it, you know, just, he's never let me down. Like, all those times that I like wanted to drink or use, I would just give it to God. Everyone always used to say, give it to God. And I'm like, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. I don't know what having a relationship with a higher power means. And, you know, I would just get on my knees and pray in the morning. And I started talking to God like all day long. Hey, God, all right, I'm going to work, you know, help me out, or I'm struggling with this. And the thing with building my relationship with God is, like, I had to be patient. It wasn't something that just miraculously came out of nowhere. It was something that was like slowly built. And going back to church, you know, walking into church, I could feel the power of God. I could feel him there. And just knowing like what he saved me from, you know, the fact that I've never overdosed and I was injecting fentanyl. Some people take a hit off fentanyl off foil and they're done.
They're done.
So I do feel like God kept me around for a reason. You know, yes, my story of human trafficking is not, you know, being thrown in a white van and tied up and kidnapped and, you know, threatened. Well, there was some threats, but like, there's different ways that people can be trafficked, you know, and
it's just like when people get molested as kids, you have the stories of like, whoa, so aggressive and violent, or the grooming, slow, oh yeah, friendship, buying stuff, and then it gets weird.
Yeah, so, you know, luckily that I never experienced anything like that, but I do work with a lot of clients that I would say majority of my clients have some kind of sexual trauma. It's actually absolutely horrific how common it is.
Yeah.
How many pedophiles there are in the world. It's very scary. But yeah, building my relationship with God has been critical, and also building a relationship with myself. Speaking kindly to myself. I used to just be god awful to myself, say the most hurtful things. And my friend Katie, who's a really important part of my sobriety, I remember one time she's like, why do you talk to yourself like that? You know, would you talk to your mom or your sister or your best friend like that? And I'm like, oh, no, never. And she's like, well, why do you talk to yourself like that? And there's been a few like little nuggets, as we call them, that I've just really picked up on along the way. And why do you speak to yourself like that? So I started changing my way of thinking from you're worthless, you're undeserving, you're a whore, you know, to I am a woman of God and I am beautiful, I'm worthy, I'm loved, I'm supportive, I'm deserving of a good life in recovery. And again, it took practice. Like I had to wake up every day and like practice doing that. But I did start to notice like a major shift, you know, and getting into the gym helped me a lot. You know, losing some weight helped me a lot. That's probably my best coping tool now. And you know, I still struggle with food addiction. That I don't think is ever going to go away for me. But I just do the best I can every day. I've learned about what macros are and protein, and I do try and track my calories. And
have you tried looking into peptides?
You know what? Yes. Me and my boyfriend are interested in them, but because we're trying to conceive right now,
I was going to say, yeah.
They're not like recommended.
It's not that they're not recommended, but I would be like, well, if you're trying to conceive, you're going to have to stop once you get pregnant type of thing right away. So it'd be kind of counterproductive.
Right. And I do, you know, I'm about 180. I would like to get down to like 150 before I get pregnant because I don't want to jump back up over 200 and have it trigger me and stuff. And I've been trying really hard to lose weight, but I'm stuck.
So I would do this because I have a peptide company.
Okay.
It's all USA made here. It's actually in San Diego. Talk to your doctor. Be like, hey, since you want to be 150 to the kid, be like, hey, can I use, or is a peptide okay for me to use to get to a specific weight? And then I'll stop once I'm ready to conceive. Yeah. And then you let me know, and I got you.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen your posts that like you do the peptides and stuff, and I'm very interested in them. But you know, it's a lot. Recovery is a lot. Like I seen some post on Instagram the other day. Oh, what's the hardest drug you've ever taken? And she thinks for a second. She goes, sobriety. And I'm like, that's so true.
Yeah, that's an experience. Yeah.
You know,
was the 4-step really big for you too? Like, you know, like being able to look at defects of character, right? Being able to look at your resentments.
It was, and I put it off for like a year. It took me a long time to actually sit down and do my 4-step. And I didn't have like a really tough sponsor. She wasn't the type that was like, call me every day and do this. Like
90 meetings, 90 days.
Yeah. And I'm kind of glad because I didn't really want that. Yeah. But, you know, yeah, doing the 4-step was critical for me. I do see a lot of character defects and the parts I played in situations where I used to play myself out to be the victim. But I'm not done with my steps. I'm on step 8, you know, which at 4.5 years in, you should be done. But that's okay. Again, everybody goes at their own pace.
Exactly.
And I've got a lot going on, you know, school. I'm now pursuing a degree in social work. You know, I work full time at FRC. I'm trying to fit the gym in, trying to, you know, get pregnant. And I would say, like, when I first met my boyfriend, there was a lot of like fear on my end and distrust and almost just
were you in other relationships with sobriety before him? Like you start to notice those patterns?
Yeah, so I was in one relationship for 3 years with a man that was actually 15 years older than me. So he was 47 when we met, and I think he's 50 now. But it just didn't work out. Like I was only really like in love for like maybe the first 6 months to a year, and then the last couple of years I was really unhappy. And I finally ended it with him in December of 2024, and I met Ryan shortly after. And I've always heard like, when you know, and I never experienced that in my life. Every time I was in a relationship, I was like, I like him, but like there's a lot of things I don't like, you know. But with Ryan, I'm so in love, and he's so in love with me too. He treats me good. He doesn't abuse me. He doesn't make me feel like all my exes have made me feel. And it felt really weird. Like when we first met, I was just expecting him to hurt me in some way. And so I was constantly like accusing him of doing things when he's like, I'm just at the gym. And I'm like, no, you're not. You're out trying to get girls. He's like, send me a picture at the gym. He's like, I'm at the gym. So just building that confidence like within myself has been a process, but it's been great. It's been worth it. And I absolutely love being a counselor. it does get challenging, you know,
Mm.
but I feel like I was meant to do this. And I have a lot of success stories of clients that are still sober to this day. And, you
Yes.
know, that makes me feel really good.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, if you let's look at your story, you know, you have so much to offer, like so much to offer, from addiction, mental health, being trafficked, pain, misery, suffering, homelessness, heartbreak, betrayal. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there's just so much there, and it's a miracle. Like you said, right? God was always there, even in your darkest times, protecting you and guiding you to get to where you're at.
Right.
Right? That's beautiful.
It is. And I try and every day just take a second and think about what I'm grateful for and how far I've come. And, you know, I do post a lot of videos of me in my addiction and me now, and I'll watch them all the time.
Mm.
I love watching those transformation videos because it's a constant reminder for me how far I've come. And those are the videos that seem to go the most viral.
Yeah.
Like, people love that. I don't know if my parents or my mom loves it so much. I don't think she likes seeing that, but she accepts it and she supports me. I'm also navigating, you know, my parents getting older and my dad's health declining. He's been in the hospital a couple times recently, and it's scary. And I always used to say, if I'm going to relapse, it's going to be when my parents die. But I don't feel that anymore.
Yeah, let me ask you that. How do you navigate trusting God when things aren't going your way in sobriety? Because, you know, sometimes people think you find God, everything works out. It's like, no, there's sometimes where I'm like, God, what are you doing?
Right. Like
Yeah.
with the infertility, you know, I really want to be a mom so bad, and I don't understand why it's not happening. Just knowing that, you know, good things take time, and God, when things don't happen on my time, it's because God's trying to teach me something or make me stronger, and it's just not in his time. Like, my life is going to all happen in his time, not in my time. And I have to constantly remind myself of that. Like, recovery for me is not like, all right, I'm here, I'm good, everything's great, I know how to, you know, maneuver this, because I don't. Every single day I have to check in with myself. What do I need today? How am I coping today? Am I using healthy coping tools today? Am I using healthy thinking? Am I using positive thinking? And oftentimes I'm not. But being able to, like, check in with myself, recognize, like, you know, DBT, CBT therapy, you know, your thoughts become your feelings, feelings become emotions, emotions become actions, or however, I don't exactly know how it goes, but it's absolutely true. You know, in my addiction, it was like, I'm a worthless piece of shit, used up, run up horror. Like, that's how I used to talk to myself. So I might as well stick this needle in my neck and hopefully it kills me, because nobody loves me anyways. I mean, that's the awful thinking I used to think. And it's nowhere near anything like that today. Now I look in the mirror and I like what I see. I like the women that I'm becoming. I have women that depend on me, not only women, but their kids as well. You know, I have clients come in with 2 kids or 1 kid, and, you know, I help work with CPS so that that kid doesn't get taken away. And that's got to be the most rewarding part of my job. I also have moms come in whose kids have already been taken and they're in foster care. And I coordinate, you know, we start with some visits, then we maybe get some overnight visits and sending progress reports. And this is why they deserve to have their child back. And I will always be that counselor that advocates for my clients to get their kids back. Because I know I don't have kids yet, but I know that a mother's child is like the most important thing to them 99% of the time. And so being able to, I can't tell you like how many times I've seen a child arrive for a visit with the CPS worker and then see mommy and run to mommy and run to mommy, and mommy picks him up and she's crying and they're crying and then I'm crying, and I'm just like, this is what God wanted me to do. This is why I went through everything that I did. I also just finished writing a book.
Okay.
So that is coming out soon. So me and a group of women are collaborated on this book. It's 6 of us, and all of our stories are in one book called Unsilenced. And we're all survivors of trafficking. So that's going to be coming out soon. But I actually have the rights to my own book inside of it, which is like, I don't know, 120 pages or something on Word. And I'm going to turn it into my own, like a digital version, and sell it. And who knows? I mean, it might make money, but I told my boyfriend, I was like, you can never read this book. I don't think he would want to.
Yeah.
It's very graphic and it goes into my trauma in great detail. And even writing that took me like 3 years. You know, I had to like, there was times where I left my computer like shaking, you know.
Oh, I bet.
And this was, I wrote most of it before I discovered ChatGPT.
ChatGPT will write you your book in a couple hours.
I did use it for my conclusion, because at the end I was like, I just need something to wrap this up. So I put my whole book in, and I'm like, help me wrap this up. And of course, it gave me something perfect. But I'm glad I didn't discover it. You know, I actually wrote my book, either typing or dictating it. So that's good. And then I also didn't discover ChatGPT until I was done with all my alcohol and drug classes. So I actually did those on my own without the help of AI. Now I do use it sometimes in my other classes. It's hard not to.
You know, it's funny. When I was in college for my social work degree, ChatGPT was getting popular. And I was like, hey, write me a 10-page essay in APA format. Da-da-da-da-da. Here's all the information. And it would do it like this, right?
Right.
And then I sent it in, and I'm like, I wonder if it'll work. And I got an A+. And I was like,
yeah, I know, it's scary. Some professors like scan for it, and there's been a couple times where they're like, you know, this is flagging for AI, and I'm just like, how can you not use it? It's a great tool.
It is. I use it for a lot of my business, for questions, things, organizations, cleaning up the writing, making it look more professional, contracts. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I use it to track my macros and track my calories and stuff. So. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else like I didn't hit on. I just know that like recovery is possible when you want it. There, you know, are tools you can use, people to reach out to. Like you don't have to do it on your own. Find God, whatever your version of God is. I feel like I'm missing. Oh yeah, and then doing all the social media stuff, like all the podcasts I've been on. I think this is like my 8th or 9th time being on a podcast, and each time it's nerve-wracking. It's never something that I'm like, oh yay, I'm so excited to go and do this and share my whole story with a stranger. But afterwards it like heals a little part of me every time. Like I know I'm gonna have the best rest of the day, and I'm gonna drive back to San Diego feeling like another part of me is healed. You know?
No, I get that big time. And so yeah, as we come to the end of this episode, we do these things called speed questions with everybody.
Okay.
And so my first speed question for you is, what are 3 do you read books?
Sometimes.
Okay. What are 3 books that you would recommend to somebody to read that can completely change their life?
Well, I guess the big book, The Women's Way Through the 12 Steps book really helped me. Honestly, I'm not that big of a reader, so it's hard to say, but just recovery stuff like the 12 Traditions, they're all great. I don't really have any like life-changing books that I can think of.
No, that's perfect. What was one single mindset shift that completely changed your life?
I am deserving of a good and happy life. From I don't deserve shit, I deserve to die, to I am worthy, I am loved, I am a woman of God.
I love that. And then, let's see if you know this one. This is a funny one. What's the worst piece of advice someone's ever given you?
Oh my gosh. Probably my fertility journey. Just stop trying. Honestly, that's lately I've been getting that a lot. You know, oh, just stop trying and it will happen. Okay, Karen.
Oh, Karen.
Yeah.
And then for the addict that's still suffering, you have 1 minute with her. She's feeling hopeless. She heard your story. She's like, yeah, but you're stronger than me. My story, no one can relate to. My addiction's different. What would you want to tell her?
That we're all different. We're all unique, and we all have our own journey. And it's up to you and your higher power to find yourself and find the way that's going to work for you, because your recovery doesn't have to look like anybody else's. This can be something that you build brick by brick. You could take things from AA, NA, Refuge Recovery, Celebrate Recovery, God, church, the gym. It doesn't all have to be like this picture perfect recovery. You pick what works for you and you you take what works for you and you leave what doesn't. And, you know, don't give up on yourself. Just don't drink or use no matter what. You can go and eat chocolate, go take a bath, go on a run, go on a walk, call your boyfriend, watch true crime, listen to comedy, whatever you need to do to cope with your feelings, but just don't drink or use because the craving passes. That was another thing I discovered is in my early recovery, there was a lot of nights where I laid there trying to go to sleep and I'm like, man, I want to use right now. And I would tell myself, just wait till the morning. If you still want to use in the morning, then you can. And I would go to sleep and I'd wake up and I would feel absolutely elated, over the moon, happy that I didn't use. Oh my God, I didn't use, and I don't even want to use anymore. And every time I did that, I was like, I built myself more and more strong. And I think, what if I actually did use? And I think about the guilt and shame that I would feel. So every single time I would do that, I realized that I didn't have to act on my impulses and my cravings. You know, you can do anything else, but just don't drink or use, and it will pass.
I love that. And where can people reach you if they want to contact you?
So my Instagram is Major Christina 89. My TikTok is also Major Christina 89. And my Facebook is Christina Garofalo.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much for driving all the way from San Diego to make the time for us to share your vulnerability, to share your hope, to share your wisdom, and to share so much truth through your humility. And just thank you for everything you do for those who are suffering and that are feeling hopeless, because you're the light at the end of the tunnel for them to believe in themselves because you believe in them. So thank you for what you do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. God bless.